Coming up on Film Nerd by Night.
Cyclops in full Jim Lee garb, taking off his visor and going full optic blast. Wow, okay. I love the original two X-Men movies so much, and then a couple of the ones that came after, like Days of Future Past. I love those so much, and I love that cast so much. I would be much more interested in this as a teaser for a new X-Men movie featuring the original cast set in the original universe than I am as this teasing an Avengers movie. And 10, 15 years ago, I'd have never said that. Over the last few years, Marvel has kind of lost me.
And now, the show.
Oh no, it's his underwear.
All right, folks, I'm Cole Powell, and this episode is going to be serving two purposes. It's going to be an episode of my regular arts and media podcast, Words Like That, but it's also going to be serving as a backdoor pilot to my new podcast and YouTube channel, Film Nerd by Night. So wherever you're watching this or listening to this, please go subscribe to that YouTube channel and or podcast feed, Film Nerd by Night. It's where I'm going to be doing film reviews, commentary, film reactions, film trailer reactions like these. Also probably going to be talking some television, so if that sounds like something you're interested in, please go subscribe to that. If you have watched or listened to any of my Marvel commentary on any of my shows, any of my YouTube channels, you may know that I was a huge Marvel guy before it was cool to be a Marvel guy. I was a big superhero nerd. And this was in the 90s. This is when we just had the comics and the action figures were starting to ramp up and the animated series were starting to ramp up. And there weren't really any good comic book movies, certainly not coming from Marvel, until much later. And then you started getting into Blade and X-Men and Spider-Man. And you just had this explosion with the MCU when I was in college. And I loved the Marvel movies. I loved the MCU when it came out. I used to work a full-time job during that period of time, and I didn't take vacations. I took vacation days just to go see the latest Marvel movie. And over the last few years, Marvel has kind of lost me. I stuck with them through Multiverse of Madness. I saw that in theaters, and I just thought it was so lackluster, and the narrative undercut the best part of WandaVision, which I thought was a pretty good series, although I had some quibbles with it too. And I almost walked out of the theater. I decided not to because I didn't like the idea of having spent that much money for tickets and not watch the entire movie. So I didn't. I stuck with it, but didn't care for the film, and I just lost interest in Marvel altogether. So last year, I tried to get back into the MCU, and I went to see Thunderbolts because it was getting a lot of buzz, a lot of hype, and there were some elements I thought were good, some elements I liked. I did a whole video on how I thought Lewis Pullman was one of the greatest Marvel villains, MCU villains we've seen. But I thought overall it was lackluster, and I think the hype was maybe manufactured, kind of artificial, because I just don't think it was at the level that that initial media buzz was pushing. And I think the box office bore that out because it kind of fizzled and didn't really do the kind of numbers that it looked like it was going to do when it first came out. Because of that movie, I kind of lost interest in Fantastic Four. Did not go see Fantastic Four. Still have not seen the movie. Planning on doing a reaction to that for YouTube and a full-length reaction for Patreon. Watch your Patreon page. Should be already out by the time this video hits. But if that sounds like something you'd be interested in seeing, check that out. Be on the lookout for that. Anyway, so they're now doing Avengers Doomsday. And as an old school Marvel fan, my interest is piqued. Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Dr. Doom. I know that for some section of the fandom, it's not being well received. I thought it was kind of a cool idea. I don't know, maybe I'm still coming back from kind of a Star Trek mindset where you get to see a lot of different alternate universe of different characters, like the mirror universe, or there's some kind of space-time continuum, alternate timeline. And that kind of thing appeals to me. So the fact that they're bringing back Robert Downey Jr., who is a phenomenal actor, who did such a great job with Iron Man, they're bringing him back as one of the greatest Marvel villains of all time. That's really intriguing to me. And I don't know if he's actually going to look like Tony Stark or he's not going to look like him at all. Who knows at this point? So I'm interested in seeing that. I also now know, spoiler alert, if you have not seen the trailer, I haven't seen the trailer, but still spoiled for me regardless, that Steve Rogers has returned. Chris Evans back as Steve Rogers. I don't know how I feel about that. I loved his character. I loved Chris Evans as Steve Rogers as Captain America in the Avengers movies. So, from a narrative perspective, they're really going to have to do something great to justify bringing him back, because he kind of ended so perfectly. Although I did have some quibbles with the time travel mechanism there at the end of Avengers Endgame. But regardless, I am at least intrigued and willing to give Avengers Doomsday a chance. And if the trailers look good, I may even go back and watch some of the Marvel movies that I have skipped over the last 3 years. If not, I don't know. Maybe I'll go see it and just try to feel my way around, figure out what's going on, because I'm sure there's going to be some references that I don't get if I don't go back and watch those other movies. But without further ado, I'm about to check out all 4 of the teaser trailers. These came out over the Christmas break, started coming out over the Christmas break and being officially released, and I wasn't making any content, so I've waited for all 4 of them to come out now, and I'm going to sit down and react to all 4 back to back and give my opinion as an old school Marvel fan. So without further ado, this is the first one, and they're just straight up spoiling it in the title. This is Steve Rogers Will Return, Avengers Doomsday, in theaters December 18, 2026. And I don't know if that was the original title when the trailer was released, and they've changed it since then, but it's spoiled in the titles. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to narrate this for the audio only. So we got a motorcycle going down the road. We got a nice little house, very calm. Somebody getting off the motorcycle on the deuce. It's going to be Steve. Slow motion. He's walking up to this house. He's pulling out his Captain America uniform, or putting up the Captain America uniform in a trunk. Oh, and he's holding a baby. Okay. And we see the bottom half of Chris Evans' face. There's his full profile. Camera spanning around. Front shot. There he is. Smiling down at, presumably, his child. And the text on the screen says, Steve Rogers will return in Avengers Doomsday. And again, this is for the audio version of this podcast. We get the partial Avengers A, some light coming through there. Countdown for the film. Okay. Very, very minor tease. I liked the shots. I liked the cinematography. There, of course, is the possibility that none of those shots will actually be in the movie. They could have even just shot those specifically for the trailers, because Marvel does stuff like that. If everybody will recall the Infinity War money shot where the Hulk is running in Wakanda with the Avengers, and turns out, of course, the Hulk disappeared after the opening scene, and it was actually Mark Ruffalo, the Hulkbuster armor in that sequence. So who knows if any of this is actually going to be a movie, or that was strictly a tease for just the trailers. I don't know. I find it interesting that Marvel decided to lead with the return of Steve Rogers. To me, that sounds like they are concerned that people are not going to show up for this film, so they're showing people that, hey, Chris Evans is back as Steve Rogers, so you really need to go check out this movie. That's what I would get out of this. We don't get a lot of story from that. There's a lot of questions. Is this going to be Steve from totally unrelated Steve than we've ever seen, an alternate timeline, alternate universe Steve that we've never seen this iteration of the character? Or is this going to be the Steve that we know and love that went back in time? Because there's a whole lot of questions. If you go back and listen to or read a couple of interviews that the Russo brothers and Marcus and McFeely, the writers of Endgame, did, the interviews they did, the two sets offered different answers to the question, what were the implications of Steve Rogers' time travel at the end of Endgame? And I can't remember which one said which, but one said, well, when he went back in time, he created a spin-off universe, as we established is how the MCU time travel works, that it creates an off branch. And therefore, he grew old in that timeline and then jumped back over to the main timeline toward the end of his life, whenever he was older. The other side of that, whether it was the writers, directors, I can't remember who said what, their response was, yeah, he went back in time and changed history, and he's been in the main timeline ever since, kind of in the background. Which doesn't make sense with the rules that they established in the story. So there was a lot of questions of what all that meant, what the implications of Steve's time traveling was. I don't know if this is related to that, or this is going to be just a completely different Captain America in an alternate timeline. But I am intrigued enough, because I like Chris Evans as Steve Rogers enough to care about his return and be interested to see how they work that. All right, up next, this is the second teaser trailer. This is Thor Will Return, and I have actually not seen the last Thor, which was Love and Thunder, I think. So I don't know what happened to the character. I remember reading some spoilers. I know he's not dead. I know he didn't die, so he's not going to be resurrected like kind of the two of the other main Avengers are going to be, in a way, in this movie. But I know for me, Thor had become a little bit too comedic. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of Ragnarok. I know everybody loved Ragnarok. It was a big hit and all this, and I enjoyed it. I watched it in theaters. I enjoyed it. I laughed, but at the same time, I was like, not my Thor, because I want I like Kenneth Branagh's version of Thor, this Shakespearean, that's my version of Thor. Very serious, and they kind of turned him into a joke. It worked to a degree on Endgame, where with fat, drunk Thor, it was funny. I liked it, but I prefer a serious Thor. So I don't know. I think I saw an interview where somebody said, maybe it's Chris Hemsworth, said that Thor was going to be a little bit more serious. So curious to see what we get in this teaser. Here we go. Again, I'm going to be narrating this for the audio only version of the podcast.
Father,
Okay, got a shot of nice woods.
all my life, I have answered every call. To honor, duty, to war.
Like how we got the narration here. Thor, we see him walking in the woods.
But now fate has given me something I never sought.
Saw a girl in a bed. Is this that? Yeah, there's something about ending up with custody of a
life untouched by the storm.
Custody of a girl, right?
Lend me the strength of the old fathers,
He's comforting her in a house,
so that I may fight once more, defeat one more enemy,
praying to Odin in the
and
woods
return home to her,
with the axe.
not as a warrior, but as warmth. To teach her not battle, but stillness, the kind I never knew. Please, Father, heed my words.
Wow. Okay. Now we got the text, Thor will return, and the police text sound as we had in the previous trailer. Okay. So, yeah, that seemed more like my Thor. Seems like that they're, if not going this direction in the movie, they're at least using that as a hook to try to get people in, which makes me think that the powers that be at Marvel also think maybe people felt like Thor got a little bit too comedic. But this was a very serious scene. Maybe his character isn't going to be this the entire film. Maybe there will be more of the comedic bro Thor in the movie. That really appealed to me. This characterization of Thor really appealed to me. Again, I haven't seen Thor: Love and Thunder. I remember now I see the kid that I read something about. He ends up with basically being an adoptive father to some girl. I don't even know what the storyline was there. So maybe I need to go back and watch that. I don't know. But the way it looks like that they're living out in seclusion in the wilderness, and he's being very much a tender father figure. And here he's asking for strength from Odin to be able to go fight some battle, apparently against Doom, since that's who we know is the big bad of the picture, but some kind of battle. And he's asking Odin to give him the ability to go fight that battle, but not come back hardened. Come back warmth, and not to teach her war but peace, which sometimes, unfortunately, war is called for. So, but as far as I get this, his desire to come back and be warmth to his daughter and teach her not necessarily teach her, but raise her in a life of peace, on a path of peace, and that she doesn't have to worry about fighting the way that he has had to live his life. Very, very, very interesting. I like that. All right, now, trailer number 3. This is the X-Men will return. And guys, X-Men, they've been my favorite superheroes since I was 4 years old. Actually, I take that back. I wasn't quite 4. I was just a few days from my 4th birthday when X-Men the Animated Series premiered. I think I already had a comic book, and I already had a few action figures. Had some from the 1984 Secret Wars collection, and then the relatively new 1991 Toy Biz. I don't know if I had any of the 92 collection yet. But anyway, get off on a tangent here. I could do a whole separate channel on action figures. But anyway, so when that pilot episode of X-Men the Animated Series came out, Night of the Sentinels, it was a pivotal moment in my life. I know that sounds ridiculous, particularly to people who aren't fans of superheroes or comic books or cartoons, but I had never seen anything like it. It was just incredible. I immediately just gravitated toward Wolverine. Wolverine has been my favorite hero ever since. And I was obsessed with animated series. I was obsessed with getting the action figures. I got the comics. And when the first X-Men movie came out, I was just blown away. I know a lot of comic book fans hated that movie. I am not necessarily a comic purist. Sometimes I am, depends on a case-by-case basis. For that time period in the year 2000, with what comic book movies had been, I think that is exactly, the first X-Men is exactly the adaptation that the franchise needed at the time. Sure, I would like to see them in more accurate costumes, which we're now starting to get now they're part of the MCU, but I love the first X-Men movie. Despite the departure from the source material, I thought they captured overall the essence of the comic, and for most characters, the essence of the characters and the character dynamics. Some not so much, but still, I love that movie. X-Men 2, also really good, and there's been a lot of hits and misses throughout. I'm really curious to see how they're going to incorporate the Fox cast, and are these going to be actually the characters from the Fox universe that have been somehow resurrected? I know the last time we saw most of these characters was at the end of X-Men Days of Future Past, in which they were resurrected because Wolverine changed the timeline and now everybody's back alive. Or are these going to be some kind of alternate timeline versions played by the same actors? I don't know. I do know James Marsden. I think all the main people from the original trilogy are supposed to be back, except for Famke Janssen. I don't think Hugh Jackman has been confirmed. And somebody may can correct me on this in the comments. But here we go. And I'm not sure about Anna Paquin either. Regardless, here we go. X-Men will return. Let's do it. Okay, looks like we're inside the X Mansion. Again, I'm hearing this for audio.
For us all.
Patrick Stewart, Professor X narrating Death Comes for Us All.
That's all I know for sure.
Ian McKellen.
The question
Shots of kind of an abandoned
are you prepared to
Xavier
die?
School.
The question is, Who will you be when you close your eyes?
Okay. Professor X says, we are playing chess. Chess piece 4. Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen's Magneto looks rough. Wasn't expecting that. Cyclops in full Jim Lee garb, taking off his visor and going full optic blast. Wow, okay. Man, okay. And then they go to the same teaser and countdown. They go to the same text and countdown that they've gone to the other 2 trailers. Okay. So I was having to try to narrate that quickly. It's just a short teaser, but there's a lot of shots of the X-Mansion look kind of derelict and abandoned, and we get a shot of the Xavier School for Gifted plaque outside. We see, ultimately, as Magneto is asking, he asks this question. The question is not, are you prepared to die, but who would you be when you close your eyes? Kind of really mysterious, esoteric, almost John Lennon-esque lyrics there, that question. And we finally see Patrick Stewart, who looks great, and he's wearing a jacket with the X symbol on it, which is very comic booky. And I say that in a positive way because I love the old comics, original comics. And then we see Ian McKellen, who looks awful. He looks terrible. He looks like he's losing his hair, and he's very shaggy beard, whatever. And he and Patrick Stewart as Professor X and Magneto kind of clasp hands there and smile at each other like old friends. And then we get a shot of James Marsden, who I always liked as Cyclops. I know a lot of people had a problem with him as Cyclops, and I know he wasn't exactly the Cyclops from the comics. I think he could have been if they'd have given him some better material, particularly on The Last Stand. Don't get me started on that. But I know there was a whole thing where Bryan Singer left, and he brought him over to do Superman Returns, all this. But anyway, I like James Marsden as Cyclops. Here he is in this, dressed in full Jim Lee 90s Cyclops uniform, which is just, that's my X-Men. That's my brand of X-Men. And he takes his visor off and goes full optic blast, which I don't think we've ever seen in a movie. We saw a little bit of that whenever his visor got removed in the first X-Men by Toad. I think maybe on X2 when they're in Stryker's base, Alkali Lake. I can't remember the specifics on that. It's been a while since I've seen X2. I didn't watch it near as much as I did X1. I know most people think X2 is the better film, and I like that better. For me, it's X1. But anyway, and again, some of this may not even be in the movie. This may have been strictly shot to throw people off, to get a teaser trailer out. I don't know. But I got to tell you this. I love the original 2 X-Men movies so much, and then a couple of the ones that came after, like Days of Future Past. I love Days of Future Past. I love those so much, and I love that cast so much. I would be much more interested in this as a teaser for a new X-Men movie featuring the original cast set in the original universe than I am as this teasing an Avengers movie. And 10, 15 years ago, I'd have never said that. I would have said, oh, that if the X-Men from the Fox universe could team up with the MCU, oh man, this would just be the greatest thing ever. But because the MCU's kind of gone down, it's not really my cup of tea anymore. And I look back on the old X-Men movies and they still are my cup of tea. Here we are, me wishing that I had just watched a teaser for a new X-Men movie with the original cast as opposed to a teaser for an Avengers movie with the X-Men in it. So I did like that. It's my favorite teaser so far, just because I'm such an X-Men nut, and particularly I loved the original X-Men movies. All right, this is the 4th and final trailer, and this is just called Avengers Doomsday. So I'm making the reasonable deduction we're going to see some more Avengers characters, because we haven't really. We've seen Captain America, we've seen Steve Rogers, we've seen Thor, and a glimpse of his adopted daughter, wherever she is. Again, haven't seen Thor: Love and Thunder. And now we've seen 3 of the X-Men, Professor X, Magneto, and Cyclops. So now maybe we're going to get some more Avengers in here. We'll see. let's go. And again, I'll be trying to narrate this for audio. Okay, got a shot of a desert, looking very Lawrence of Arabia here. Okay, Shuri, back shot
I've
of
lost everyone
Shuri
that
walking.
matters to me.
Also haven't seen Wakanda Forever, so I don't know what happened there. Okay, somebody,
The
queen,
king has his duties
far off
to prepare our
Egyptian.
people
Oh, this is going to be
for the
Namor.
afterlife.
Again, I haven't seen Wakanda Forever.
I have mine.
King M'Baku of Wakanda.
Oh, and Baku is king?
Ben, Yancey Street, between
Okay.
Broome and Grand.
Okay. Got the thing from Fantastic Four. And then close to shot. No comments. Fantastic Four. Interesting. 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 So there's no... We don't get any glimpse of Doom. Okay, so that was really interesting. That was not what I was expecting for the final teaser at all. I guess because Black Panther, that sub-franchise, is one of their biggest grossers, particularly of the new set. I think Wakanda Forever is one of the highest grossing of the last two phases. I think we're like in phase 5 now, so like the last two phases. Wakanda Forever may have been the highest grossing film of that set. I'm not sure. Well, no, I think maybe Spider-Man No Way Home was. I had to go back and look at the stats on that. But regardless, I guess that's why they chose to incorporate some of the Black Panther, Wakanda Forever characters in there. That again, I know M'Baku and Shuri from Black Panther and from Shuri from also the Avengers film. I can't remember whether M'Baku was in the Avengers Infinity War or not. Regardless, Namor, I don't know outside the comics, and I think he was on the Fantastic Four animated series, so I don't know this iteration of the character at all. Yeah, well, I think that's who that was. I'm not 100% sure that's even who that was, but I think so from what I remember seeing on the trailer for that. So they're focusing kind of on that, I guess, because it is such a big sub-franchise. And then they bring in a glimpse of the Thing there, and I got to tell you, that I didn't remember the Thing's voice sounding that normal whenever I reacted to the Fantastic Four trailer. Again, I haven't seen that movie either. I plan to do it, though, for sure. If no other movie before Doomsday, I'm going to check out Fantastic Four. But I guess I'm just used to the Michael Chiklis version, which I know a lot of people like those movies. I love them. Yes, they're kind of cheesy. Not the greatest, but I have fun watching them, particularly with my kids. And I like the fact that Michael Chiklis's Ben Grimm, his voice actually got gravelly as he after he changed into the Thing. I didn't really hear that in this one. That's a little bit of a nitpicky gripe. And I don't know, maybe maybe that was just in this trailer and doesn't sound like that in the new Fantastic Four movie. I don't know. I guess I'll find out. But that was an interesting way to end the 4 teases. And I got to tell you, nothing really sold me on this movie, on wanting to go see this movie, beyond what desire I already had to see it. Before I watched these, I was like, okay, well, Chris Evans is back. That's intriguing. Robert Downey Jr. is going to be playing Dr. Doom. That's intriguing. The X-Men are back from the Fox universe. That's intriguing. I always like those movies. Big X-Men fan from back in the day. None of those 3 things really were enough to make me go, okay, I'm definitely going to go see this movie. Well, now I've seen these trailers, and the only thing that I've seen that maybe makes an additional hook is Thor's being serious, because that's how I prefer Thor. But that being added is not really enough for me at this juncture. And I realize we're out from the movie. We're going to be getting more trailers. And maybe after I see the Fantastic Four movie, I'll be like, oh man, that was great. Yeah, this has got me excited for Doomsday. I don't know. Right now, I am just going to wait for some more trailers to come out and hope maybe that as we reveal a little bit more, maybe get to see a glimpse of Robert Downey Jr. as Doom, that I'll be more enticed to go check this out in theaters when it comes out. And I think it's, December 18th. Week before Christmas. Yeah, that's a good release date. But wasn't it going up against, is this going up against Dune? Yeah, both Dune and Avengers Doomsday come out on December 18th, the same day. And I got to tell you, right now, if I can only see one film that day, unless the buzz, the reviews and word of mouth on Dune is no good, just based on my own personal enjoyment and past experience of both franchises, I'm going to be paying my money to see Dune that day if I can only see one movie. So, I don't know. Marvel's going to have to show me something in the upcoming full trailers to get me really excited about this movie. So, what do you think about these trailers? What do you think about the MCU as a whole? Are you still a fan? Were you ever a fan? Do these teasers, does it kind of whet your appetite for the movie, or at least whet your appetite for some more produced trailers? Let us know in the comments. And if you're interested in seeing more trailer reactions, be sure to subscribe to the Film Nerd by Night YouTube channel and or podcast feed. I'll be reacting to as many trailers as I can and as many films as I can. And I hope soon I will be reacting to the new Fantastic Four film. Full version will be on Patreon, chopped up version on YouTube. And that's going to do it for this episode. Hope you enjoy it. Let us know in the comments, like, subscribe, wherever you're watching this, and we'll see you soon.
Film Nerd by Night, created and hosted by Cole Powell. Theme, Beautiful Now, written and performed by Cole Powell, a Random Mind Records production. Section 107 of U.S. copyright law allows for the fair use of copyrighted material for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, parody, or research.